Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad HAZIQ SIRHAN bin Muhammad REZAL, and today our groupmate will be presenting about the multiple regression analysis. Introducing my groupmates, starting from the left of the slide, Anis ILIANEY, AMIRUL ZAIDEY, myself, LUKMANUL HAKIM, and lastly, NURUL BATRISYIA.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. I bid to Prof HADI and my fellow friends. My name is Anis ILIANEY binti ILIAS. As a first presenter, let me short briefly about this assignment. We are required to conduct a study by using the multiple regression analysis (MRA) model to predict the price of the residential property in a particular area based on physical factors. The case study for this assignment was carried out in section 19 Shah Alam. Shah Alam has been developed spanning over 41.69 km square feet. Moreover, this area is a strategic location as Section 19 has been developed with many facilities and amenities. The reason why we choose this location as our case study is because the transaction happened within the property at case study. Section 19 are always updated in Valuation Management System, which is VMS. The transaction data that we obtain is from 2020 until 2022, which shows that this strategic location is highly demand among the people. The types of property of the case study are double-story terrace house, which is consists of corner lot, intermediate lot, and end lot. Next, there are 39 comparable is being chosen for this case study within the vicinity area, which most of them in excellent and fair state building condition. Most of our comparable were located at Jalan Tambatan and Jalan Belat 3 that comprise 5 units each respectively. Apart from that, the second highest comparable we collected were located at Jalan Pukat 1, Jalan Bido and Jalan Laya, which total 9 units. Besides, we also collected others comparable that were located at Jalan Perahu, Jalan Belat, Jalan Kemudi, Jalan Kepuk and others, which consist of 20 units. Development of the facilities and amenities are important aspect in a locality because the demand and price of the residential property will increase if facilities and amenities surrounding give benefit to the residents. Section 19 has been equipped with various types of facilities and amenities only a short distance away in order to satisfy the public needs for a convenient way of life. For instance, playground, Dewan Besar Tanjung, SMK Section 19, SK Section 19, UiTM Shah Alam and KPJ Selangor.
Hi and Assalamualaikum to Prof Abdul Hadi. My name is NURUL BATRISYIA binti Muhammad RADI with matrix number 2022494174, and I will continue the presentation with the next part, which is the MRA techniques. What is MRA? MRA or multiple regression analysis is a statistical tool or techniques that helps in making prediction or forecasting something and also helps in decision making. It also used to measure the relationship between one dependent variable and numerous independent variables. The predicted value of dependent variable will be depending on the value of independent variables. To make prediction, MRA model have to be constructed. The MRA model is generated automatically through a software called as SPSS or Statistical Package for the Social Science. SPSS is being used for our case study to help in analyzing the data of variables as well as generating the MRA model to make a prediction of house price in our case study. The MRA model constructed are in form of equation y equals to beta 0 plus beta 1x1 plus beta 2x2 and so on, whereby y is dependent variable, beta 0 is the constant, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3 and so on is coefficient for independent variable, and x1, x2, x3 and so on is the independent variable. The input data in SPSS, a total of 20 independent variables are decided, and the collection of data has been done through an inspection of 39 comparables selected in Section 19 Shah Alam. Next is steps in generating a MRA model. The first step is the input data. Data collected need to be entered into the SPSS. 20 independent variables being labeled and measured in the variable view before the data obtained from inspection will be keyed in the data view. Moving on to the next step, which is running tests. There are 4 tests that need to be conducted to determine the significance of the MRA model that will be established. The first test is measures of dispersion. In measures of dispersion, 2 regression tests need to be conducted to filter out all variables that are not meet and pass the indication required, as well as analyzing the left variables which are significant. At the end of the test, a summary will be displayed which consists of variables entered or removed, ANOVA test which should more than 4, model summary which consists of standard error, R-squared and adjusted R-squared which need to be in between 0.6 to 1, and the coefficients which the t-value should be more than 2. The second test is normality test. It is conducted to see the normality of dependent variable data's distribution. The normality of distribution can be seen when the data forms a bell shape. The third test is scatter plot test. It is conducted to see the relationship, either positive or negative relationship, exists between the dependent variable and each of independent variables. The one that has positive relationship will be selected, as it is significant to be included in the MRA model. The last test is multi-collinearity test. This test conducted to see the correlation between each independent variable which can be seen using Pearson correlation method. The Pearson correlation data should be not more than 0.9, which shows that independent variables are not interrelated among themselves. If the independent variables are highly correlated between each other, then one of the independent variables should be excluded. The final steps in generating the MRA model is establishing the MRA model. After the independent variable data has been analyzed and passed the necessary tests, the MRA model is significant and can be established to predict the value of dependent variables. That's all from me and the MRA techniques. Let's move on to the next part, which will be presented by HAZIQ.
In obtaining the result of MRA model using the SPSS software, there are 2 important variables, which are the independent variable, which is IV, and a dependent variable, which is DV. A dependent variable is a variable that changes as a result of the independent variable manipulation, while the independent variable is a variable that stands alone and isn't changed by other variable that you are trying to measure. In this study, the IV is the variable that can become a factor of the house price. The first IV is land. The land area can be a factor for a buyer who wants to buy a house. Logically, the bigger the land size, the higher the price of house. But in the study, one or two houses have a big land, but the price isn't that high compared to the market value. The second IV is the gates type. The types of the gates that offer homeowner security are one of the characteristics that may be utilized to compare terrace house. Better entrance gates are designed to keep burglar out of your property, and there are several alternatives of a gate type, such as number 1 is basic types, the second one is decorated gates, and the third one is automated gate system. And the third IV is the renovation done. Renovation may also increase the equity of the real estate investment and provide a high market price. A larger the area, whether a kitchen or bathroom or a bedroom, will substantially influence the property's value. The fourth IV is the availability of the security. The security installation on the house defines the availability of the security. Primary security measures such as installation of alarm, CCTV, and others to improve home security. To conform and to comfort the safety of the house with a better security system may raise the value of the property. The fifth IV is a type of house, lots such as an intermediate lot, a corner lot, and also end lot. Type of lot is a subjective factor of a home buyer to choose to buy a house. But in valuation practice, the corner lot price is supposed to be higher compared to the intermediate lot and corner lot. The sixth IV is accessibility to the main road. One within a residential populated area, this main road connects traffic from strategic access to the residential road in section 19 Shah Alam. They consist of a true phase of the multi-purpose of road which give access to residential property as well as the facilities. The closer it gets to the main road, the higher price of the house will be. The seventh IV is availability of air conditioning. The air conditioning installation in the house can improve the comfort of living in the house and also the resident. Air conditioning can affect the price house because the buyer can save the money to install a new air conditioning. The eighth IV is the size of porch. Because of each unit is normally only allocate two sufficient parking places, parking bay space is important consideration. The ninth IV is the distance from amenities. One of the highlighted factors is the neighborhood amenities. An attractive neighborhood must be near from the grocery stores, clinics, banks, malls, and others. Resident need and availability of the service and amenities since it influences the market price of the house. The 10th IV is a distance from public transport such as a bus stop and KTM. Public transport is significantly important in town areas, especially in the section 19 Shah Alam, because most probably all the people or residents use the public transport to save the money to go to their workplaces.
Accessibility from highway. Accessibility from the highways is one of the important factors of home buyers need before buying a house. It will make it easier for buyers to access cities in Shah Alam such as Section 7. Besides, ease of access to the highway can save travel time to work or anywhere else. As a result, the availability of parking spaces is an independent variable. Qualitative assessment will be employed, with 0 indicating far from the highway, 1 indicating near, and 2 indicating nearest to the highway. Next, distance from school. It is familiar that a prospect buyer inquires how close a residential property is to the nearest school. When they ponder buying a house, it appears instinctive that the nearer a residence is to a school, the further desired the house will be to families with school-aged children due to travelling and security matter. Therefore, we intend to observe whether this variable influence the value of the property at section 19 Shah Alam and the correlation generated in SPSS via multiple regression analysis. Scales were justified as 0 far, 1 near, and 2 nearest in the SPSS. Distance from playground, court, and hall. Local hall can be generally identified in the context of residential area amenities as a spacious room for meetings, catering, etc. Meanwhile, court for the purpose of sport which specifically designed for athletic activities can be described as an asphalt court enclosed by fencing or standalone pad. A bottom line was reached as we tend to analyze between these amenities towards overall market value of Section 19 Shah Alam. Evidently, Braden and Hill 2018 agreed that the playgrounds represent vital components of urban living and can be concluded increasing the living of neighboring residents for social bonding and community health improvement. The skills were justified as 0 for 1 year and 2 nearest in the SPSS. Distant from mosque, subsequently having a surau or mosque in the context of worshipping place for Muslim become favorable among the Boomer in section 19 inshallah. In the non-religious perspective of the non-Muslim stakeholder, traffic and parking cramming or noise are typically being affiliated with the mosque, especially during Friday prayers or when some local activities are organized. Therefore, we are interested in observing the correlation between the distance of mosques with the house prices in both positive and negative framework. The scales were justified as 0 for 1 year and 2 years in the SPSS. Moreover, Feng Shui factors. Feng Shui in Chinese can be defined as wind and water. It is an art of arrangement which an ability to implement view and natural environments. Furthermore, the Chinese in Malaysia will ruminate with Feng Shui elements in choosing residential property. It is trust that it could provide positive influence which bring harmony, triumphs and prosperity. Xia opined that the property generally residential property have a greater opportunity to be sold out when they have an excellent Feng Shui. As a result, we are interested to further analyze whether this variable had impact on the housing price in section 19 inshallah, and considering this impact independent is a subjective component with broad knowledge in the matter is required. The scales were justified as 0, no and 1 yes in the SPSS. Building condition. Additional work or maintenance can be expensive and leverage time incentive, which is why a well-maintained property may have a greater value compared to the property that in poor building condition. Keeping the building condition includes conducting repairs and enhancement or renovating the premises, for example, replacing broken tiles and repainting the exterior of house. Several research have certified that property estates have a vital effect on property prices. Thus, we are taking this opportunity to reassure the statement via multiple regression analysis. The scales used were as 0 poor, 1 moderate and 2 excellent in the SPSS. Sound pollution. Commonly, noise pollution can be recognized differently from each individual. For example, anything from sirens to barking dog or the noise of traffic on the road. The area of study situated nearby highway and noteworthy situated really close to the train station. Thus, we want to observe whether the sound pollution affected the house price at section 19 inshallah. The scales will justify as 0 low noise, 1 moderate and 2 very noise in the SPSS. Furthermore, sewerage condition. With the recent preceding issues of flood inshallah, we want to analyze whether the sewerage condition in form of collecting the data after observing the actual condition of the sewerage around the vicinity. The data basically to determine whether the drainage situated were clogged or unclogged, and later defining the correlation between sewerage condition and house price at section 19 inshallah. The scale will present as 0 for clogged and 1 for not clogged in the SPSS. Lastly, condition of the secondary road. Section 19 inshallah covers a vast past, new and potentially upcoming housing development. Most of the comparable property was situated at the close and far from each other but well connected with paved road to ease the accessibility of the residential occupants and public stakeholders. This condition of the secondary road were analyzed to observe the link between its current state and the house price at this area. The road condition differ from each comparison depending on the workmanship, quality of the materials and weather. The scales will justify as 0 for poor, 1 for moderate and 2 excellent in the SPSS.
The steps to analyze the measure of dispersion test to get the MRA model. The first step is you need to click the Analyze menu, then you choose the Regression option, then you click the Linear button. Then there will be a pop-up like you guys see in the slide. To obtain an MRA model, we use the multiple regression linear method by entering all the data that has been collected into the SPSS software to generate the data. There will be 2 regression tests. The first regression test we will enter all the independent variable into the software, and the result of the model summary is R square equals to 0.972, the adjusted R square equals to 0.940, and the SEE is 25,890, while ANOVA is 31. There will be a 7th variable, which the t-value is more than 2. Then we do the second regression test, where we remove all the IV which the t-value is less than 2, and the result of the model summary for the test is R square equals to 0.946, and adjusted R square equals to 0.934, and the SEE equals to 27,000, and ANOVA equals to 700 plus. Therefore, we already get the MRA model. The establishment of the MRA model, we managed to get 7 beta or IV, which the t-value is more than 2. The 7 beta is gate side, corner lot, accessibility to main road, distance to bus stop, distance to from mosque, building condition, and sewerage condition. And the finalized MRA model as shown in the table below. Last but not least, after we manage to get the MRA model or equation, we need to input back the model into the SPSS to get the MRA prediction and the different percentage between the prediction and also the transacted price. The result is the result of the MRA prediction of the house is not too far difference from the transacted price, while the highest percentage difference is 10.98%, and the lowest percentage difference is 0.15%, which is an excellent result. And that's all from me. Thank you for hearing. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is LUKMANUL, and here is my part which I'll be going to explain what is the strengths and weaknesses of MRA model. For the first one is, MRA model is more accurate than a traditional method because it considers every independent variable that can affect dependent variable, and every single dependent variables that have a relationship with dependent variable are the most important elements that might affect the house price in this study. While traditional method only focuses on the adjustments elements that only contribute to big factors such as land area, build-up, accessibility, tenure, location, and etc., while ignoring the rest. For example, in the study, the factors of distance from the mosque and school had high correlation compared to distance from convenience stores. As a result, the house price may also increase even though the house is located far from convenience stores. And the reason why it is high because it is near to mosque and school, which has strong correlation. Unlike comparison method, it cannot identify that way. And the second advantage is MRA model also has the ability of identifying independent variables that have high correlation. So examiner can or is able to identify and exclude one of them from the model. For example, if the sign of lamp has high correlation with the size of build-up area, one of them should be excluded since they have strong relationship. And the third advantage is avoidable from human errors and bias. As traditional method cannot identify the relationship between independent variables and dependent variable, it might result in undervalue or overvalue. Since MRA model was developed from artificial intelligence, which is AI, and from abundance of data of independent variables that have been keyed in, AI can generate model summary. This is because the ability to predict done by MRA model matches with other predictive models. And model summary can also avoid bias unlike traditional method. Just because the principle of real estate, which is based on art and science, that is applied in traditional method. And every value has different point of view of extension when they make the adjustments. Some value come up with 5% and some or other values come up with 10% for the same factor adjustments. This will then lead to unfair result eventually. While independent variables that are analyzed in MRA model are calculated fairly since there is no any big adjustment of comparisons to one another. Even though we can determine MRA by observing, but we have ability to control the confounding variables. And the last strength of MRA is it is easier to understand since the data only demands based on statistical principles. Once we have obtained the model summary, we will only need to include the numerical number of case property into each independent variable. And for example, the model summary is calculated in terms of correlation coefficient and the related statistical parameters. Besides, there is no limitation for examiner to include all the variables that he thinks fit in the model. And moving to the weaknesses of the MRE model. Okay, the first weaknesses is the validity of data is not guaranteed when there is a poor quality of data. And if the data of independent variables are not well keyed in by the examiner, MRE model cannot generate the model or result properly. It's because it depends on examiner's experience to determine the data for each nominal and ordinal data to obtain the best quality of data for the model. And the second weakness is MRE tends to prone to collinear problems. When there is a high correlation between each independent variable, the result of the model might be imprecise or inaccurate since they will affect each other's independent variable predictive power, and the regression will lose its accuracy eventually. And the subsequent weakness of the MRE model is it only performs better when the number of independent variables are small. This is because high number of variables can affect the reliability of the model to work well or properly. And the third weaknesses is MRE model cannot generate result for qualitative data since it only demands or requires for a numerical value for the data sets or quantitative data. Thus, the variable based on subjective or opinion or specifically qualitative data by the examiner cannot be computed. So, he needs to choose the other software such as NVivo. And the last weakness is it requires long analysis and calculation procedure, starting with collecting data. And the data of independent variable must be collected thoroughly and comprehensively, and it must cover each house in the same locality in terms of type, cost, and etc. And deciding the best level of number to be put for both nominal and ordinal based on their examiner experience and opinion, I think. And it also requires us to fill in every single house and variable in SPSS to generate a model or MRE equation after then running MRE model tells. And that is all for the part of strength and weakness for MRE model. Thank you.
Our recommendation: firstly, application of SPSS by future researchers. SPSS is valuable for both qualitative and quantitative data. Equivalent values has been given for both datasets. About 85% of the fellow researchers use quantitative data for their further studies. So, the laypersons consider that the SPSS software is more useful in quantitative data than qualitative data, but no, SPSS gives equivalence influence for both datasets. Yet, if there are several software available in the market to analyze quantitative data, SPSS is more likable than other softwares. Since SPSS is user-friendly software and easy to use for the beginners, and also helps in analysis even involving a larger set of data. Thus, all researchers should consider using SPSS as their analytical tools. In fact, multiple regression also led the researchers to determine the general fits of the model and the relative contribution of each of the predictors to the total variable described. Second recommendation, data collection and technical aspects. If variables encompass omitted values, a modest descriptive table is fast way to inspect the extent of missingness. By default, SPSS uses only case without missing values on the predictors and the outcome variable. If missing values are scattered over variables, this may result in lesser data actually being applied for the analysis. According to Berg, firstly, inspect histogram to see if distribution makes sense and set missing values or excludes variables. Secondly, Inspect descriptive to see any variable with low n. Inspect this-wise valid n and exclude variable with low n. Thirdly, inspect the scatter plot to see if relations are linear and exclude or transform cases of predictor respectively if needed. Lastly, inspect correlation matrix to see Pearson correlation makes sense and inspect variable with unusual correlations. That's all for me, thank you. Second recommendation, data collection and technical aspects. If variables encompass omitted values, a modest descriptive table is fast way to inspect the extent of missingness. By default, SPSS uses only case without missing values on the predictors and the outcome variable. If missing values are scattered over variables, this may result in lesser data actually being applied for the analysis. According to Bird, firstly, inspect histogram to see if distribution makes sense and set missing values or excludes variables. Secondly, inspect descriptive to see any variable with low n. Inspect this-wise valid n and exclude variable with low n. Thirdly, inspect the scatter plot to see if relations are linear and exclude or transform cases of predictor respectively if needed. Lastly, inspect correlation matrix to see Pearson correlation makes sense and inspect variable with unusual correlations. That's all for me, thank you.
And here I am again. In conclusion, MRA is a very helpful statistical technique in making predictions or forecasting. It's used to analyze the data and construct a model that shows a relationship between the dependent variable, which is house price, and all significant dependent variables, which are based on the 39 comparable properties collected within our case study in section 19 Shah Alam, and several stages of development and several tests need to be taken to make a prediction or forecast the value of house price. There are only 7 independent variables out of 19 independent variables that passed, which are type of gate, corner lot, accessibility to the main road, distance from bus stop, distance from mosque, building condition, and service condition. And they have the value that are more than 2.0 as well as 60 less than 0.2, which are significant to be a model. And these independent variables also passed the normality test, scatter plot test, and multi-collinear test, and produced a model that helps in predicting the value of house price in section 19. And at last, we managed to infer the strengths and weaknesses of the MRA model. From our analysis, it shows that the data of independent variables are very crucial to build the model. The model is more accurate when every independent variable is associated with the dependent variable. And the human error can also be available as the analysis was conducted through SPSS software that automatically generate the data. However, there are some weaknesses of the MRA model can be in the issue of data validity, problems in collinear, high number of independent variables, complicated analysis, long time consuming, and more. And yeah, that was the last part of our presentation today, and we would like to thank to Prof. HADI for having his ears and paying attention, and have a good day. Thank you.